We'll start with Greg Jarrett. I want you to put the two of these things together. I'm sure you've had time to read the indictment against Roger Stone, and
sure.
Especially in light of the Pentagon Papers case, I don't see a crime if you're looking for information as long as you're not part of the team that would be part of stealing something.
Well, I don't see it either. And in fact, the indictment of Stone demonstrates yet again that there's no known evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. I mean, his special counsel, Robert Mueller, had this evidence against President Trump's former advisor, then Stone surely would have been charged with some collusion-related offense. But conspicuously, he was not. Indeed, no one to date, Sean, has been charged with the crime for which Mueller was appointed to investigate more than a year and a half ago. You know, instead, the special counsel is doing what he's been doing all along, bringing charges generated by his own investigation itself. These are commonly referred to as process crimes. That is, they are offenses against the legal process. They typically occur when somebody allegedly interferes with the procedures of an investigation. So, I don't mean to minimize process crimes. They're serious violations. Nobody should lie or mislead or obstruct.
But on a higher level, when you delete subpoenaed emails and you acid wash your hard drive with bleach bit and you bust up your devices, tell me why that's any different, if not worse.
Well, it is not that much. It is worse, actually, because those are principal crimes. And, the fact is, you pointed out, there's a two-tier justice system. James Comey admitted in his testimony that Clinton aides made misleading statements, i.e., they lied. Yet none of them were ever charged. Clinton was never charged and should have been for felonies. And yet, if you're connected to Donald Trump, Robert Mueller and his team of partisans will come after you with a vengeance.
What do you think, David Schoen, great attorney that you are? Number one, what do you think of the pre-dawn raid? Number two, what do you think of the charges? And number three, when you make the comparisons to Hillary Clinton in particular and some of these upper-level management types at the FBI and DOJ, what do you see?
Yeah, number one, the pre-dawn raid has Weissman's handprint all over it. This is what he does. This is the intimidation tactics. Been doing it his entire career. There's no justification whatsoever. Period. End of story for this. And Mr. Whitaker ought to really reprimand them for this and stop this kind of tactic. Number two, the charges, again, as we've said, this is a creation of Special Counsel Regulation 600.4. He created crimes when they appointed this Mueller and this horrible Mueller team to this so-called investigation. And that's all it is. Think of the lives that have been ruined simply by the appointment of Robert Mueller that has nothing to do with the underlying purported investigation. And third, the comparison is very stark. Listen, Hillary Clinton has not been prosecuted, nor has anybody else, in connection with the erasure of those emails. It's been documented by the IG, ongoing investigation. Hopefully, we know how they skipped through that. We have the IG's report on that. And these are the same emails in many cases, remember. Now, the issue with Stone are some Clinton emails. It's unbelievable, the hypocrisy. Final thing I have to say about this is, how can Jeannie Rhee possibly be involved in this, as has been reported? She not only was Clinton's lawyer, she was Clinton's lawyer with respect to these emails and the erasure of the emails. More than that, Jeannie Rhee recently defended a case, did a horrible job in North Carolina, in which a guy was prosecuted specifically for the erasure of emails. So if Jeannie Rhee and Andrew Weissman are involved in this thing, the indictment should be thrown out.
Well, I mean, we've said this before. We pointed out the past history of the pit bull Andrew Weissman, Jeannie Rhee, who ran the Clinton Foundation as their lawyer. But there's even more news, because even both you and John Solomon were on last night, Greg Jarrett, and we learned a lot more about James Baker, as we've learned more about Bruce Ohr when he testified, as we learned more that, under James Comey's FBI, we now have 2 criminal investigations that are ongoing. And I've got to believe that if there is real justice and equal justice under the law, that this is only the tip of the iceberg, that Comey would be in trouble as well. Page and Strzok likely have legal issues coming their way, sure, and Bruce Ohr and many others. Am I correct?
You're right. And just take a look at the FISA abuse. The people who signed off on this, which was completely unverified, phony evidence, and they knew it, perpetrated a fraud on the court. And those are various felonies that I've talked about repeatedly on air. And the information I obtained yesterday confirmed testimony of a former top FBI lawyer by the name of Tricia Anderson. She confirmed in her testimony before Congress last August, it was behind closed doors, but I've confirmed it, and I quoted in my column that's published on Fox News. She said Sally Yates, who was the Deputy Attorney General, as well as Andrew McCabe, the Deputy FBI Director, both went through those FISA applications line by line. That means that they signed on to a phony document and perpetrated a fraud on the court. So they should be investigated along with others at the FBI like James Comey and Rod Rosenstein, who also affixed his signature and vouched for the authenticity of a fabricated phony document.
You know, Sarah Sanders, when the press corps, asking a question on a lot of people's minds today in the wake of the FBI's apprehension of the notorious criminal Roger Stone that needed a pre-dawn raid and 29 fully armed and vested policemen. Anyway, she openly wondered if the FBI would be raiding Hillary's home or Comey's home or Clapper's home. You know, when asked by fake news CNN about the arrest, well, we're going to let the courts make the decision. A bigger question is, if this is the standard, will the same standard apply to people like Clinton, Comey, and Clapper? And then she said, will we see the same people we all know have made false statements? Will that same standard apply? That seems like a fair question. David.
Of course, it's a fair question. You know the answer. The answer is no. But that's going to have to change with this Justice Department. When Mr. Barr comes in, the double standard that we're even seeing still from the Justice Department is going to have to change. There's going to have to really be a real investigation, maybe the appointment of a new special counsel on all of these crimes that you have reported on for so long that have gotten no traction whatsoever. Listen, you demonstrated on this show the goings on at the Department of Justice behind the scenes after Comey was fired that I've characterized as an attempted coup, or as close to that as we've ever seen in our lifetimes. If these people are able and willing to do that kind of thing, there's nothing beyond them in their agenda to get Trump.
It seems, though, that, we have a mystery here, and that is the new Attorney General, William Barr. And what is he going to do? We also have another mystery into the whole FISA abuse, because, now that we have all these details that all of these inappropriate actions were taken, all protocol put aside, and all those people that signed on to that FISA warrant did so knowing Clinton bought and paid for it, but they didn't put it in bold letters, Greg Jarrett, so that the FISA judges can see it. A little asterisk saying, well, it might have a slight political taint to it, doesn't cover that by any stretch of the imagination. And similarly, knowing now that they never verified or corroborated any of this, that means they all seemingly conspired to commit a fraud on the court. You have identified 6 felonies that would be associated with that. Explain them.
Well, they're abuse of power, conspiracy to defraud the government, making false statements, perjury, several other conspiracy. William Barr committed himself, as you know, Sean, in his confirmation hearings to investigate FISA abuse and get to the bottom of the conduct of people in law enforcement. The truth is that a nefarious plot hatched supposedly between Trump and Putin and the Kremlin was a hoax.
Quick break, more with Greg Jarrett, and David Schoen is with us, the attorneys. All right, as we continue with Greg Jarrett and David Schoen, let me ask you about, in light of the Stone thing today, I'm just fascinated with this. The Pentagon Papers was the name given to a top secret Department of Defense study of U.S. political and military involvement in Vietnam. Anyway, Daniel Ellsberg, at the request of Robert McNamara, who is the Secretary of Defense, a team of people prepared this study. Anyway, it gets in the hands of the New York Times. The New York Times prints it. It becomes the New York Times versus the United States, a precedent-setting ruling that the New York Times has every right to publish stolen information as long as they didn't steal it or conspire to have it stolen. Correct, Greg Jarrett?
Yeah, absolutely, Craig. And the Washington Post was in on that case as well. They both published it. And then a whole host of newspapers across the country published it.
By the way, they also published all of WikiLeaks findings as well, did they not?
Yeah. Look, the fact that, of course they did. And the fact that Roger Stone was trying to make contact with allies of WikiLeaks to find out what Julian Assange has is no different than what I did. I mean, I guess I half expect the FBI to show up at my door in a pre-dawn raid as well. I mean, I made phone calls. I tried to find out information. I wrote about it. I talked about, what I expected, and that's what Stone did. Stone may have puffed it up a little bit, but if you examine his emails, all of it was based on information that was put out by WikiLeaks. But
it's
Julian
true.
Assange.
But also, he had what he thought was coming wrong on a number of occasions. He thought it was something else that was coming. So it was a guess on his part.
No, he
thought it was more about the foundation, for example.
Bottom line is, he said this is going to be a big deal. Well, heck, everything that WikiLeaks publishes in the political venue is a big deal.
Is this you can indict a ham sandwich? Last word, David Schoen.
Sure it is. And Mueller has shown every inclination to want to do that as long as it helps his agenda, the anti-Trump agenda. Every civil libertarian in this country, Jerry Nadler, who holds himself out, Elijah Cummings, they should want someone like Roger Stone to bring out some matters of public interest like this, and they should demand a full FISA investigation because it could happen to their friends, too.
All right, David Schoen and Greg Jarrett, thank you both for being with us.